you ever had a week where the week kind of takes on a theme of some kind? It doesn't happen to me often, but just like a theme. Like every time you turn around, there's something going on in the same theme. And for this week, for some reason, for me personally, and for my family, my wife and I, it's something to do with birds. It's been a bird week. Bird week, yeah. I don't know what it is with birds. So anyway, I started my week off. The Youngermans are back, and they have this bald eagle they give me reports on from Lake Glenville, and I'm thinking about that bald eagle all the time. It's big, huge wingspan and everything. I just wondered how that thing survived the winter. So I started my week thinking off about that bald eagle. And then we have a rooster and a chicken. Bob is the rooster, and Regina is the chicken. Regina's got some health issues that have necessitated her being separated from Bob and receiving Epsom salt baths throughout the week on our screened-in porch. This is my life right here. My wife doing all the work. I'm doing some landscaping the other day, and I walk behind the house, and Bob has gotten out of the chicken coop. Bob is free-ranging for the first time in his life, looking extremely lonely in the process. I don't know what to do with. I don't know anything about chickens. I'm trying to figure out how to get Bob back in the coop before my wife wakes up. That's my biggest problem. So finally did. The turkeys are back on our property, and big time. I think they set their calendar. They found out the season's over. They make the X. They come out. Now they're eating in the property every morning. And yesterday I'm landscaping, and out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, these three helpless, tiny, half-formed, not yet flying birds fall out of the sky right next to me. And they're just like floundering about in the dirt. And I'm slinging dirt and mulch and stuff. I'm thinking I'm going to kill them any second. And I'm also thinking that Mom is going to dive bomb me. So I took like an hour break. And Mom comes back up she finds out this little chick, she's barely chirping. She comes and finds it and stands next to it and gets the little baby to follow her into the grass and hide. And she brings it worms until she has enough strength to walk across the yard. Birds everywhere I go. So I said, Lord, what are all these? What's with all the birds? Here's what I want you to do this morning. I want you to take one hand and cup it like this, and I want you to take your other hand and put it over that, right like that. Now, I want you to pretend in your own mind that you have in your hands your spiritual devotion to Christ, your walk with Christ. Now, think about it. It's in there. Now think about your walk with Christ. Is it like that little baby bird, very vulnerable and very vulnerable? Is it like the eagle, majestic, can't wait to get out of your hands, fly? Is it like Bob the rooster, kind of lonely and disconnected? Is it like the turkey, out in the open, in community with others who believe? Or is it like our chicken, a little bit sick and needed some personal attention? What is it? Most of us probably think it's a little vulnerable. Others of us, we couldn't contain it if we wanted to. But I would tell you this, your simple, pure devotion to Christ is the single most important thing you have going on. It's good every now and again to assess it. Can you remember the last time you replaced your furnace filter? Don't leave early. About every time you have to replace your furnace filter, a pastor needs to give a message on this particular topic. This particular topic has to do with deception. It's an important topic to look at every now and again because we're all susceptible to deception. In particular, a deception that could harm our personal, simple, pure devotedness to Christ. None of us are immune. This is heavy on my heart because I have a fellow minister who has seemingly walked away from the faith, has become prey to deception. There's a very interesting thing about deception. It's one of the few things you can say this about, if not the only one. When deception is actually taking place, you're unaware of it. Most anything else that happens in us or to us, we are aware of. Deception, no. By nature, we're not aware of it. This is why it's good every now and again to ask yourself, and I would encourage you to ask the Lord this question, am I in any way deceived? Because if in any way you are deceived, then you are compromising your personal, simple, authentic devotion to Christ. If left unchecked long enough, you and I have the ability to walk away from the Lord. Oh, and not only walk away from the Lord, turn and walk towards something else, even worse. Is your walk lonely and fractured? Is it strong in community? Is it anemic and sick? Is it regal and noble and hard to contain? I'm going to share a story quickly that I don't know if I've shared before. Frankly, if I have, please forgive me. It is self-deprecating and it makes me look really bad. I'm only hoping the value of telling the story will exceed how bad this story makes me look. I got some credit card statements that showed repeated charges from Amazon Prime for $11 and some odd cents for 2 months, 8 or 9 of them. I didn't think we had 8 or 9 Amazon accounts, but after verifying with my wife, I find out we did not, thank God. So I Google Amazon customer service, and I call them and explain the situation, and they say, yes, in fact, we do see that, and we will rectify that, but it sounds like you might have a technical issue. I'm going to transfer you over to our IT department and our support, to which they did. And I talked with them at length about my network at home, my system, how many TVs I had, a printer, what kind of computers, what's going on. And they asked more and more questions, and every time I answered the question, I felt more and more violated and hacked. I thought, I can easily rectify a credit card charge. That's a phone call, that's no problem. But does someone have access to my bank records and my personal information? This is what they began to prey on me with. To the point where, in my deception and in my fear, I purchased a security product, software. See, the first thing you're supposed to do is call Michael Stoltzfus. Second thing you're supposed to do is confer with the Lord about it. I didn't either. And I purchased a safety product, only to find out later that I did Google Amazon customer service, but I never talked to them. That my Google search had been manipulated and that there was no IT department and there was no support staff, and I had bought something from a bogus company in Illinois. I tell this story because I'll never get back the money that I spent, but I'm trying to get some value out of the experience. I notified them by phone only to tell them that I have notified the FBI and that I was confident there would, at some point in time, be an indictment, and they really didn't know who they were messing with. What I did not tell them was that FBI stands for Faith-Based Initiative. I was being deceived, motivated by fear, and I didn't realize it, but in retrospect, I should have. Since that time, I've been on other websites that look like I think I know what they are, but at closer scrutiny realize they're not. I was deceived. Matthew 24:12 and 13, Jesus, speaking of the end times, says this: because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. There will be an increase in wickedness and lawlessness in the world. I guess you see that. Surely you do. If you don't, go back to bed. You've been sleeping for years. But in the midst of all of that is deception, and we cannot afford to be deceived. Paul writes to the church in Corinth, his second letter, if not third. And chapter 11, verse 2 and 3, he says this: I am jealous for you with a godly jealousy. I promise you to one husband to Christ. I promise to you one husband to Christ, so that I might present you as a pure virgin to him. But I am afraid that just as Eve was deceived by the serpent's craftiness, your minds may somehow be led astray from your sincere or simple and pure devotion to Christ. Let's break it down. Jealous. The word he chooses means to burn with zeal. The negative aspect of this word is to be heated or to boil with envy. Paul is deeply distressed, passionately distressed, envious that they might actually miss out on something, and it really, really bothers him. It bothers him because he knows that the people in Corinth are being deceived by what? By the system in place, the false teaching in place, their conditioning over the years, the culture in which they live, the sexual promiscuity, whatever the case may be, they're being deceived. And the deception is costing them that pure and simple, authentic, and very much needed fellowship with Christ. I mean, friend, that's the most important thing you have, is your fellowship with Christ. He is radically upset and zealous that something has come in and swooped in and deceived the church in Corinth to the point where they have compromised this pure devotion to God. God feels the same way. There's a godly jealousy going on here, a godly jealousy. God grieves the loss of fellowship with people to the extent they have allowed themselves to be deceived or given themselves over to something that is impure and have been in a place of vulnerability to be led astray out of whatever it is that is a deficiency in their walk with Christ that has snagged them and snatched them away. I see this going on more and more. He says, I wanted to present you as a immaculately clean, pure from every fault, venerable bride to Christ. I wanted to present you as one who was uncorrupted in any way, shape, or form by the blood of the Lamb. But this deception, he says, has got me a little bit upset. He says, I'm afraid. This word afraid is where we get the word phobia. How many of you actually have an incredible phobia? Raise your hand, if you don't mind. Okay, 2. Oh, sorry, 3. Thank you, Lori. Okay, how many of you, because that seems statistically improbable, how many of you have a phobia of raising your hand in public? Okay, there's more, thank you. He's deeply afraid. In fact, in Greek, it's the word terrified. Here's a man, an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ, who's wanting to shepherd and oversee this church, this very important church. The church is in the middle of a den of iniquity. Aphrodite, the sexual god, the prostitutes at the temple across the street, he knows that this church must remain strong to reach those lost people in Corinth. The emperor looks at Corinth as so depraved and so off base that when he sees someone who has lost their morality, he says they've been Corinthianized. That's the reputation this town has. Paul is at a phobia state about their deception. And he says, it's all because Eve was deceived by the serpent's craftiness. What is this? Serpent's craftiness. I have found, and my experience is, that Christians in general are more often taken advantage of because the most trustworthy people are usually the most trusting. How many of you, or is it just a coincidence, the same Nigerian has been mugged in the same Nigerian airport for the last 21 years? What bad luck this guy has. And always needs money wired to him immediately. Isn't this amazing? I must have received this email a blue million times. I'm thinking, man, this guy's got the worst luck ever. But then I'm saying to myself, why for 20 years have I been following the same Nigerian who just got mugged and lost his wallet? Because it works. You think he's doing it for fun? People are wiring money to this con man. We want to help. As I said, the distinction of deception is you don't know what's happening. The second, this deception deceives us in more ways than one. And if there's ever a time in human history, in America's history, we need to be aware of this, it's this. We cannot make enemies out of flesh and blood that actually are dealing with spiritual issues. It will cost us our credibility. It will cost us the credibility of our faith. If we only attack the people who say things we don't like or say them in a way we don't like and never battle against the spirit behind the very things that we are dealing with in our culture, we will have taken the bait and be deceived. How did this crafty serpent entice Eve? With two things. One, that was pleasing to the eye, and two, that was desirable for gaining wisdom. People put a very high price on acquiring knowledge and wisdom. And that can be leveraged. And that, my friend, is the beginning of the deception. Deception often is painfully slow. Painfully slow. Drip, drip, drip for decades. Do it long enough, under the radar, unnoticed, it will produce a grand harvest of deception. The greatest advocates of abortion now are the mothers of the girls who are pregnant. Why? Drip, drip, drip. Entire generations have gone by with the acceptability of ending human life and the unwillingness or lack of desire to raise a grandchild. And somehow it's become okay, to the point of 60 million occurrences. Drip, drip, drip. It's very slow, very methodical, very strategic, and very much unnoticed until you stop, call time out, step back, and actually look and see what is going on. My wife and I went to, we were new in our marriage and our faith, and my faith anyway, and we were invited to this picnic by this church that basically is a cult. But we thought, we'll go and we'll minister to these people. And we had a pretty good idea that the brisket and the barbecue was going to be really good, and the banana pudding was exceptional, I must say that. But after the picnic, sure enough, divide and conquer. They take Angie one way and me another and proceed to tell us that we're not saved, we don't know the Lord because we're not members of their, quote, church. And I began to weigh the battle I'm in right now versus the brisket. But they were friends and we got to minister to them, and it was all about deception. Deception. And I was like, wow, man, that's an extravagant deception. It was almost as if 300 people there had a killer picnic for the benefit of trying to convert two of us to something that was so unbiblical, I've never heard of anything worse. And I thought, man, they're passionate. In a way, I was like impressed. We live in a world that has two things right now that are incredible things that I almost think that God is allowed to foster and build momentum, because they're going to be the two tools that are used most when revival hits this country. People have something today that they've never had before. When you were coming up as a kid or a young adult, here's what happened. If you wanted to voice your opinion, you got an opportunity to do it every 4 years. It was called a vote. You registered to vote. You showed up at the ballot, and you gave them your vote. That was it. Maybe every 2 years. Maybe you're politically active and you voted for more than one dog catcher over the years. You got to use your vote more often. You used your voice. You shared your opinion more often. Nowadays, in our culture, there's something that is so incredible. I liken it to the Roman road system and the shipping lanes that were in place before Jesus came so that the gospel would spread all over the world. And it's called a platform. People today have a voice, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's called a social media platform. And it's there that they voice their opinion, their faith, their lack of faith. That's there that they try to motivate you, inspire you, or shock you, or spread whatever information they want to spread. Can you imagine what will happen if the Spirit of God hits this nation and people are struck motionless in the presence and can't function and are transformed by the power of God as has happened in history in this nation and others? Can you imagine how that social media platform would be used to share their experience and transformation with the world? Now that voice would become one, which, by the way, is what this culture wants right now. Our 24/7 social media voice has now become synergistically a craving and a desire for movements. When voices of like kind get together and join one another, we have movements. Me Too movement, this movement, that movement. In a culture that's very causal in their motivation, we now have the two things in our infrastructure that will make a revival and God explode in this nation around the world. Oh, by the way, instantaneously. We like movements. Will we like a move of God? There's three things the church can do right now. And how the Church of Jesus Christ in America responds in one of these three ways will determine its level of deceptivity. Number one, a church can retreat and regroup. It can retreat from the culture, exist, and not be bothered. Number one. Option number two, a church can make accommodations. Accommodations for what, you say? Accommodations for absolutes. Absolutes can be massaged, reworded, revetted, and the very basis of our faith, the basic doctrine of the patriarchs in our faith, will be morphed into something else where we define this, that, and the other thing as something other than what we see in the Bible, in the biblical text. That level of deception takes place to be more attractive to lost and hopeless people. It doesn't work. It's done to attract more people to the church. It doesn't work. It's done to raise the revenue in the church that's already on a decline. It doesn't work. What the world wants is a church that will not compromise, but will actually preserve its distinctives. It will actually preach the gospel, not waver from the text, stand firm and not sit down and compromise, because that church will at one point in time have the credibility of the lost. As one that did not waver, that stood on the truth, that expected miracles because God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, that does not conform to the pattern of this world that says God has changed or does things differently. That church that stands and doesn't waver, who can change its style and its look and its clothing and its decorations, but will not waver on the doctrine of the church, that church is going to be part of an end-time prophetic revival in this country, unprecedented. And we have such a church right here in this place. And we will not allow deception, however subtle, slow, or speedy it is, to keep us from the gospel of Jesus Christ, which is the power of God, and we're not ashamed of it. You must do likewise in your daily life. Your spiritual devotion to Christ is predicated upon your willingness to stand on the truth and expect it on a daily basis. We cannot be deceived. There's too much at stake. The serpent's craftiness. It says it will take your minds and lead them astray. People that I know, people that I prayed with, people that I counseled, people that I had fellowship with, people that I heard testimonies from, are now saying that Christ is no longer Lord of their life. That's powerful. That's powerful. That doesn't just happen. That's wicked. That's extremely wicked. That's troublesome. Don't forsake the assembly as some are in the habit of doing. What? Do I expect people to be in church 4 out of 4 Sundays a month? I don't know what I expect, but I ain't legalistic about it. Legalism will send you packing. Grace will draw you in. I had the pleasure of endorsing a book the other day from someone in our congregation that wrote about the Chick-fil-A story. When the time comes, I'm going to recommend it to you. It's an incredible book. But the premise was that Chick-fil-A figured out how to attract people, whereas other restaurant chains drove people to them. Chick-fil-A attracted. I'll tell you what's attractive. In this day and age, where people are despondent and depressed and confused and divided and sickened by, and even calloused to, desensitized to the everyday murders and shootings and assassinations of this, that, and the other thing, whether it be in a school or a cafe window or sitting in your car, having someone's brains blown out on a weekly basis. We're so desensitized to it, we don't even know what's happening anymore. You know what those people in this world without Christ want to see? Someone who will not waver, will not be blown by every wind of fad and teaching that comes down the pike. They want to see someone resolute in their faith, who walks it out, talks it, in the marketplace, in the home, in the church. Man, that person with that kind of credibility is amassing great potential and great credibility in the eyes of people who are dying every single day of their life. We live in a soup of murder and violence and terrorism, despondency and depression, and it's only intensifying. People want to see the real deal. Some churches have made their decision. They've poured water on the gospel of Jesus Christ and will pay dearly for it. People aren't turning their back on Christ. They're turning their back on Christianity. I have to show them Christ. In word and in deed. Are you deceived in any way? Not a question you should care whether I ask you, but a question you should and I should propose to the Lord. Lord, am I deceived in any way? What a great question. Am I deceived in any way? And the answer, oftentimes, is son, daughter, yes, a little bit. Yes, a little bit. Any presence of deception compromises that right there. That pure, simple, authentic devotion to Christ. Can't have it. We cannot have it. We cannot have the slow drip, drip, drip over the 50s and the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and the 21st century of racism in the church. We can't have prejudice. We can't have bias. We can't have favoritism. It's deception. And on some level, it will compromise your witness and your simple, authentic devotion to Christ. Paul was deeply passionate about it. As I suppose, as I listen this morning, I am too. The The role of a pastor is to occasionally change the furnace filter or provide the reminder that it's needed. Deception will increase. Will our awareness of its increase in us? You and I don't need 3 devotions in the morning. That's an oxymoron. We need a devotion to Christ, not the habit. A devotion to the person, not the process. We don't need ritualism for ritualism's sake. We don't need to make idols out of ritualism. We need to preserve and protect and foster that intimate, meaningful connection with Jesus the Christ and the power of the Spirit of God. Failure to do so will allow us to become vulnerable to deception, the craftiness of the serpent. Don't allow your hurts to deceive you and cloud your understanding of truth. Don't allow your experiences. Don't allow your lack. Don't allow your plenty. Don't allow anything to compromise. It's simple, authentic devotedness to Christ. Are you in need of a revival today? Personally speaking? What is that? Revival is when you're dead and you need to be brought back to life. Boom! Clear? I would say most of you are not dead. If you're without Jesus Christ this morning, you're dead in your sins and your transgressions. Frankly, you are dead spiritually, and you need to be revived. In fact, you need to be vived. Are you in need of restoration today? Has something been taken from you that needs to be given back, restored? Is it passion? Is it love? Is it excitement? Is it spiritual giddiness? Is it laughter? Is it joy? Is it new perspective? Is it a new goal? Is it a dream? The resurrection of a dream? Is it an aspiration? What is it? Are you in need of replenishment today? We're riding on the experience you had at some evening service of a church in the mid-'60s, or when's the last time the Spirit of God got a hold of you and filled you with power and might? Be you filled daily with the Spirit of God. Are you in need of reorientation? Is it possible we need to look at things differently? I'm going to tell you why a lot of you are in this church. Because a lot of you are in this church because it's different than where you came from. And there's so many different backgrounds and flavors represented here. Some of you are still trying to catch up with, what is this thing? What is this place? What are they doing? And I hope you never figure it out. Because once you do, it's over. Enjoy the ride. What's a Pentecostal preacher doing in the mountains of North Carolina? I still haven't figured that out. But I know it has something to do with this. Stretching you beyond where you've been. Taking you to a place you've never gone before. That at one point you used to be afraid of, but now you're longing for. You're here to be challenged. You're here to be pushed. You're here to be wooed. You're here to see something you know you need, but don't know how to grasp. That you're told in some way, shape, or form wasn't for you, wasn't for us, wasn't for that tradition, but remains in that book, and it haunts you, doesn't it? That's okay. That's what makes this exciting. Let's pray. Are we in any way, on any front, deceived, Lord, about any matter, biblical or otherwise? If so, Lord, I pray for clarity. I pray for discernment. Let nothing formed against us prosper. And do not allow our simple, earnest devotion to you be compromised in any way, shape, or form. Revive those who have fallen asleep. Reorient those who need to see more of you. And restore for those and replenish those who need you to pull them along just a little, just a little. And before you ever answer any of these prayers, we worship you in spirit and in truth. In Jesus' name, amen.